The rain hit like fists against my back as I ran, Harlan's roar still echoing in my skull. Blood from my split lip mixed with Seoul's downpour, bitter and metallic. I'd made it, across an ocean, away from his hands. But my suppressants were gone, scattered on the airport tiles. Heat clawed through me in the alley, my vision blurring. Footsteps approached. I tried to crawl away. "Boss, there's an Omega." "I see him." The voice was dark velvet, commanding. Strong hands lifted me. Sandalwood and smoke flooded my senses, making me whimper. I forced my eyes open. Sharp jawline. Ink crawling up his throat. Eyes like midnight that saw everything. "Please," I gasped. "Don't." "Shoo." He carried me toward a black car. "You're safe now." His scent wrapped around me like chains. I'd escaped one cage. I didn't know I was walking into another.
If you're just joining us, subscribe to the channel for more interesting boys' love story. Here's what you need to know.
The back of Harlan's hand caught my cheekbone with a crack that echoed through the farmhouse. I tasted copper, felt the familiar bloom of pain spreading across my face like spilled ink. "You think you can look at me like that?" His whiskey breath filled the kitchen, hot and rancid. "At your own mother's funeral, you ungrateful little." The second blow sent me sprawling against the cabinet. My ribs screamed where his boot had connected yesterday. Or was it the day before? The days blurred together now that Mom was gone, buried under Missouri clay while rain drummed against her cheap casket. "She was weak," Harlan growled, grabbing my hair and yanking my head back. "Just like you. Worthless Omega trash." My wolf whimpered inside me, too broken to fight. 19 years old, and I'd never known anything but this. His fists, his rage, the way his eyes lingered too long when my heat suppressants made me dizzy. Mom had tried to protect me, her slim body a shield that grew thinner each year. Now even that was gone. "Answer me when I'm talking to you." "Yes, sir." The words were automatic, survival. He shoved me away, stumbling toward the liquor cabinet. "Clean this mess up. And tomorrow you're moving into the basement room. Closer. More convenient." Ice flooded my veins. The basement room had a lock on the outside. I waited until his snores rattled through the walls near midnight. The storm that had threatened all evening finally broke, rain lashing the windows in sheets. Perfect. My hands shook as I pulled Mom's hidden shoebox from behind the loose panel in my closet. I'd found it 2 days ago while packing her things, the things Harlan told me to throw away. Inside, $3,000 in worn bills, a faded photograph of a Korean man with kind eyes, and her journal. I'd read it by flashlight, tears blurring the Korean characters I barely understood. But some words needed no translation, a name. Kang Dae-sung. Seoul. My love. Min-jun's father. Not Harlan. Never Harlan. The journal pages told a story Mom never could. How she'd fled Seoul pregnant and desperate. How Dae-sung had been involved with dangerous people. How she'd thought marrying an American alpha would keep me safe. Instead, she'd traded one nightmare for another. The last entry, dated 3 weeks before her death. "If anything happens to me, send Min-jun to Seoul. Dae-sung's people will protect him." The address is. The rest was smeared, water damaged. But Seoul was enough. It had to be. I shoved clothes into my backpack, mostly black hoodies and jeans that hid bruises. The cash. The journal. The photo. My suppressants rattled in their bottle, maybe 2 weeks left if I stretched them. The window stuck, swollen from humidity, but adrenaline made me strong. I squeezed through, dropped into the mud, and ran. Harlan's truck keys were in the ignition. He never bothered locking anything out here. Who would steal from the meanest alpha in 3 counties? I cranked the engine, hands slick on the wheel, and floored it down the gravel drive. In the rearview mirror, the porch light flicked on. Harlan's silhouette filled the doorway. I didn't look back again. The truck I abandoned at a rest stop 2 states over. Hitching rides the rest of the way to Chicago O'Hare. The ticket agent barely glanced at my passport. Mom had made sure I had one, just in case, before handing me a boarding pass. One way to Seoul. It ate through most of the cash, but freedom had a price. I made it through security in a daze, my face throbbing, ribs aching with each breath. The terminal hummed with life, families, businessmen, couples holding hands. Normal people living normal lives. I found a bathroom and locked myself in a stall, finally letting the tears come. Quiet, shaking sobs that hurt my bruised ribs but cleansed something deep inside. Mom was gone. Harlan was behind me. Ahead, a country I'd never seen, a father who might not want me, a language I barely spoke. But anything was better than that basement room. I splashed water on my face at the sink, avoiding my reflection. The violet-blue bruise across my cheekbone would fade. They always did. Boarding began 40 minutes later. I shuffled down the jetway with my backpack, my whole life compressed into 20 pounds of fabric and hope. Found my seat, middle row, middle seat, cramped and perfect because it meant I was leaving. The plane pushed back from the gate. The engines roared. And as we lifted into the storm-dark sky, I felt the first real breath fill my lungs in years. I reached for my backpack to take my suppressant. Routine, necessary, the thing that kept my Omega nature buried where Harlan couldn't exploit it. My fingers found the empty pocket. No. I tore through the bag, panic rising. Clothes. Journal. Photo. No pill bottle. It must have fallen out during security, or in the bathroom, or... The cramping started as we reached cruising altitude, subtle but unmistakable. My heat cycle, suppressed for so long it had become unpredictable, chose now to wake up. 14 hours to Seoul. No suppressants. And in a metal tube full of alphas, I was about to become very, very vulnerable. I closed my eyes and prayed to my mother's ghost that I'd survive long enough to reach her homeland. The worst, I thought, was behind me. I was so very wrong. Seoul hit me like a tidal wave. Neon signs bleeding Hangul characters I couldn't read, voices sharp and fast in a language that should have felt like home but sounded alien. Incheon Airport had been manageable, following signs with English translations, but the subway system swallowed me whole. I stumbled out at a random stop, somewhere the map said Gangnam, because that was a word I recognized from songs Mom used to hum. The streets gleamed with rain and wealth, luxury cars, designer storefronts, beautiful people who looked nothing like Harlan's rural Missouri. The cramping worsened with each block. Heat burned through my veins, my skin too tight, too hot. I'd managed on the plane by locking myself in the bathroom, cold water and sheer willpower keeping the worst at bay. But now, 15 hours without suppressants, my body was done pretending. I needed help. Needed somewhere safe. Needed. A group of alphas passed, their heads turning in unison. One inhaled deeply, eyes flashing gold. I ran. The alley behind a sleek nightclub seemed darker than it should be, the bass from inside vibrating through the wet pavement. I collapsed against a dumpster, my backpack sliding off my shoulders. Slick dampened my thighs. The Omega part of me I'd buried so deep was clawing to the surface, desperate and needy and wrong. Mom, I whimpered in English, my Korean too broken for prayer. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Footsteps echoed at the alley's entrance. Is someone there? The voice was male, speaking Korean, then switching to English. You need help? I tried to stand, to run again, but my legs buckled. Two men in dark suits approached, not threatening, but not safe either. Their eyes assessed me with clinical precision. Omega in distress, one said into his phone, still in Korean but slow enough I caught fragments. Behind Club Azure. Unmarked. Looks injured. Don't touch me. My voice cracked. Please, We won't hurt you. The second man crouched at a distance, hands visible. Our boss can help. You're not safe out here. Your boss. Hysteria bubbled up. I'd fled one predator. Why would I trust another? A black Mercedes pulled up to the alley's mouth, headlights cutting through the rain. The back door opened. He stepped out like a king surveying his kingdom. Tall, broad-shouldered, a long black coat that screamed money and power. Even through my heat-addled senses, I felt his presence like gravity, pulling everything toward him. Dark hair swept back from a face too sharp to be kind, ink crawling up his neck in patterns that suggested dragons or demons. His alpha scent hit me like a physical blow. Sandalwood and smoke, aged whiskey and something deeper, gunpowder maybe, or blood barely washed clean. My wolf rolled over in submission before I could stop it. Leave us. His voice was dark velvet edged with steel, the Korean command brooking no argument. His men melted into the shadows. He approached slowly, each step deliberate. When he crouched in front of me, I saw his eyes, black as midnight, ancient in a face maybe 30 years old. They swept over me, cataloging details, my bruised cheek, split lip, the way I held my ribs. Then his gaze caught on my throat, where Harlan's fingers had left fading impressions 3 days ago. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. Who did this to you? The question came in perfect English, his accent barely noticeable. My stepfather. The truth spilled out, my defenses shredded by heat and desperation. American Alpha. I ran. I had to. A cramp seized me, doubling me over. His hand moved to steady me, and I flinched violently. He froze. I'm not going to hurt you. Each word was measured, controlled. But you're going into full heat in the middle of Gangnam. That makes you pray. He shrugged off his coat, wrapping it around my shoulders. The fabric was warm, soaked with his scent, and my body betrayed me by leaning into it. I can take you somewhere safe. Or I can leave you here and watch the other alphas tear you apart within the hour. Your choice. I looked up at him, this dangerous stranger with knowing eyes. He'd recognized Harlan's signature written on my skin. The specific pattern of an alpha who enjoyed making Omegas hurt. Why do you care? I whispered. Something dark flickered across his face. Because I know what those bruises mean. I've seen them before. He offered his hand. My name is Kang Jae-hyun. And you, little Omega, just stumbled into my territory. Kang. The same surname as my father. The coincidence was too sharp, too perfect. But the next cramp stole my ability to question it. I took his hand, warm, calloused, strong enough to break me but gentle in that moment. Min-jun, I managed. Kim Min-jun. His eyes widened fractionally, recognition blazing there for just a heartbeat. Then his mask slammed back into place. Let's get you out of the rain, Min-jun. He lifted me effortlessly, carrying me toward the Mercedes. We have much to discuss. As the car pulled away from the alley, I caught his reflection in the window. His jaw was clenched, a muscle ticking there. And his eyes, fixed on me with an intensity that had nothing to do with my heat. He knew something. About my name. About my father. About why I was really here. I'd escaped Harlan's cage only to fall into something far more complex. And despite every survival instinct screaming warnings, part of me wanted to stay. I woke to silk sheets and floor-to-ceiling windows framing Seoul's glittering skyline. For one confused heartbeat, I thought I'd died, that Harlan had finally killed me, and this was some fevered dream my brain conjured in its last moments. Then the heat crashed back into me, and I knew I was very much alive. Easy. The voice came from beside the bed. Jae-hyun sat in a leather chair, still wearing his blood-dark suit minus the jacket. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing more ink. A tiger mid-strike on his left forearm, Korean characters I couldn't read wrapping around his right. You're safe. My penthouse. Top floor. I tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Everything hurt, ribs, face, the deeper aches from weeks of Harlan's brutality. But underneath it all, the relentless burn of heat demanding to be satisfied. Where? My throat was sandpaper. My backpack. On the dresser. Nothing's missing. He stood, moving with predatory grace to a wet bar. Returned with water and what looked like medication. Painkillers. Not suppressants. Those would be dangerous in active heat. But these will help with the injuries. I took them with shaking hands, our fingers brushing. The contact sent electricity up my arm. His scent was everywhere here, saturating the air, making my wolf whine with need. I should go. I pushed the sheets back, realized I was wearing only my boxers and one of his shirts. I can't, you don't have to. You'll go into the streets like this? His eyebrow arched. Last maybe an hour before some alpha forces a claim. Is that what you want? No. The word came out small. But I don't know you. You could be worse than the stepfather who left those bruises? He crossed to the bed, sitting on the edge. Close enough to touch, but carefully maintaining distance. The finger marks on your throat. The boot-shaped bruise on your ribs. The defensive wounds on your forearms. His jaw clenched. I know an abuse pattern when I see one, Min-jun. I've seen it before. On who? Someone I failed to protect. The admission cost him something. I won't make that mistake again. He reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and tilted my chin up. His touch was firm but gentle, examining the bruise on my cheekbone with professional detachment. Then he retrieved a first aid kit, cleaning the split on my lip with careful precision. You speak English well, I said, needing to fill the silence. Harvard MBA before I came home to run the family business. A dark smile played at his lips. Though my family's business isn't exactly what they taught in those classrooms. What business? Let's handle your immediate crisis first. He set the kit aside. Your heat will peak within hours. You have 3 options. Ride it out alone, which will be agony. Let me call a professional heat service, which I don't recommend. You're vulnerable right now. Or. My heart hammered. Let me help you through it. His eyes locked with mine, black and fathomless. I give you my word. I won't bond you without permission. Won't mark you permanently. But I can ease the worst of it. Make it bearable instead of torture. Every rational thought screamed this was insane. I'd known him for hours. He was dangerous. I could see it in the way his men had obeyed without question, the casual authority in his every movement. But another cramp seized me, vicious and demanding. And his scent called to something primal in me that had never responded to anyone. Not even during previous heats I'd white-knuckled through alone in my locked bedroom, while Harlan prowled outside. "Why are you helping me?" I whispered. "Because your surname is Kim, but your father's name was Kang Dae-sung." He watched my eyes widen. "Yes, I knew him. He was my mentor before he died. And you," his hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. "You have his eyes. His bone structure. I'd know Dae-sung's son anywhere." The revelation punched through me. "You knew my father?" I owed him everything. Something haunted flickered in his expression. He made me promise, if anything happened to him, to protect his family. "I failed your mother. I won't fail you." Before I could process that, another wave of heat rolled through me. I gasped, clutching his wrist. "Please. It hurts." "I know, baby. I know." The endearment slipped out, surprisingly tender from such a hard man. "Let me take care of you. Let me make it better." He leaned in, giving me every chance to refuse. When I tilted my face up instead, our lips met in a kiss that tasted like destiny and damnation. His hands were everywhere, stripping away fabric, mapping my body with a reverence that undid me. Where Harlan had made me feel like prey, Jae-hyun made me feel worshipped. Claimed, yes, but treasured in the claiming. "Tell me if I hurt you," he growled against my throat, his alpha nature rising to meet my omega need. "Tell me if you want to stop." But I was beyond words, beyond thought. My body knew what it wanted, arching into him as he filled me, stretched me, completed something I hadn't known was broken. The pleasure was overwhelming, obliterating every bad touch that came before. His knot locked us together, and I shattered, crying out in a language that belonged to neither of us. The wordless music of submission and surrender. Afterward, tangled in sheets damp with sweat and slick, he held me against his chest. His heartbeat was steady thunder beneath my ear. "You're under my protection now," he murmured into my hair. "No one touches what's mine. Not your stepfather. Not anyone. I'm not property," I managed, though my body still trembled with aftershocks. "No." His arms tightened. "You're far more dangerous than that. You're Kang Dae-sung's legacy. And in my world, that makes you a prince." "What world?" He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. "I control half of Seoul's criminal empire, Min-jun. The clubs, the protection rackets, the ports. I'm what Americans would call Yakuza, what we call Japuk." A dark smile. "Your father built this kingdom. I just inherited it when he died." The room spun. My father was a king in the shadows, and his son just stumbled into a war he doesn't understand yet. Jae-hyun's hand cupped my face. "But you're safe here. In my cage, perhaps. But safe." I should have run. Should have been terrified. Instead, I fell asleep in a monster's arms and dreamed of cherry blossoms. 3 days in paradise, and I was losing my mind. The penthouse was a gilded prison, marble floors, designer furniture, a kitchen stocked with food I didn't know how to pronounce. Jae-hyun left each morning in tailored suits that probably cost more than Harlan's entire truck, returning late smelling of smoke and danger. He never told me where he went. Never asked if I wanted to leave. Because we both knew the answer. I tested the front door on the second day. Locked from the outside, requiring a fingerprint I didn't have. "For your protection," Jae-hyun had said when I confronted him. "Harlan won't stop looking. And there are others in Seoul who'd love to get their hands on Kang Dae-sung's son. So I'm a prisoner. You're safe." He'd cupped my face, that gesture becoming familiar. "There's a difference." I wasn't sure there was. On the 4th morning, the front door opened and 2 strangers walked in like they owned the place. I grabbed a kitchen knife before my brain caught up. "Whoa, easy." The man raised his hands, grinning. He was tall, muscular, with a beta's calm scent and kind eyes. "I'm Tae-min, Jae-hyun's head of security. He sent us to babysit." "I don't need a babysitter." The knife suggests otherwise. The woman beside him was petite, elegant, with an omega's delicate features and a shark's smile. She wore a business suit that screamed power. "I'm Yuna, Jae-hyun's strategic advisor. And you must be the lost prince everyone's talking about." I lowered the knife slowly. "People are talking about me?" "The entire organization." Yuna glided to the couch, settling in like a cat claiming territory. "Dae-sung's son, back from the dead. Claimed by the boss himself. It's very dramatic. I approve." Taemin moved to the kitchen, starting coffee with practiced ease. Don't mind her. She lives for drama. But yeah, your big news. Jae-hyun's been different since you arrived. Different how? They exchanged glances. He smiles occasionally, Yuna said. Which is terrifying, honestly. We're not used to it. Why not? Another look, heavier this time. Taemin poured 3 cups of coffee before speaking. 5 years ago, Jae-hyun had a bonded Omega. Minho. They were everything to each other. His voice gentled. The Hwang family, our rivals, wanted to weaken Jae-hyun's position. So they took Minho. Tortured him for 3 days before leaving his body in the Han River. Ice flooded my veins. Oh my god. Jae-hyun went on a rampage that left half the Hwang syndicate dead, Yuna added, examining her nails. Very messy. Very final. He swore he'd never bond again. Said love was a weakness he couldn't afford. She looked up at me, sharp-eyed. Then you stumbled into his alley looking like a kicked puppy, and suddenly all those rules went out the window. We're not bonded. I touched my neck, where Jae-hyun had carefully avoided marking me permanently. He said he wouldn't without permission. Which is why we're here. Taemin sat across from me. To make sure you understand what you're getting into. Jae-hyun's world isn't safe. Loving him isn't safe. I don't love him. The protest came too quickly. I barely know him. Yuna's smile was knowing. Keep telling yourself that, princess. They stayed through the afternoon, teaching me basic Korean phrases and showing me how to navigate Seoul through the penthouse's secure computer system. Taemin was patient, brotherly. Yuna was caustic but oddly protective, like a cat who decided I was worth tolerating. When they left, the silence felt heavier. I found myself at the window, staring down at the streets 40 floors below. Freedom was right there, cars and people, and a whole city I'd never explored. I could break the glass, maybe. Or wait until Jae-hyun came home and demand he let me go. Go where, though? I had no money left. No contacts. Couldn't speak the language well enough to survive. And Harlan was somewhere out there, hunting. The front door opened. Jae-hyun entered, loosening his tie. His eyes found me immediately, reading my expression like a book. Thinking about jumping? No judgment, just curiosity. Thinking about running. Where would you go? He crossed to the bar, pouring whiskey. I'm not being cruel, Min-jun. I genuinely want to know. What's your plan? I had none. The realization burned. I can't stay here forever. Why not? He turned, leaning against the bar. The setting sun turned his edges molten gold. I can give you everything. Safety. Luxury. Education. I have tutors who can teach you Korean, business, whatever you want. You'd never have to fear anyone again. Except you. The words hung between us. Something pained flickered in his expression. You think I'd hurt you? I think you'd never let me leave. I faced him fully. That's its own kind of hurt. He was quiet for a long moment, studying his glass. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You're right. I wouldn't. I can't. He looked up, and the rawness in his eyes stole my breath. Daesung asked me to protect his family if anything happened to him. I failed your mother. I didn't even know she'd left Korea until it was too late. But you. He crossed to me, each step deliberate. I've been searching for you for 3 weeks. Since the day your mother died, and my informant in Missouri reported an Omega matching Daesung's description fleeing an abusive alpha. My heart stopped. You knew? Before I had people watching the airports, the borders. I was terrified I'd be too late, that your stepfather would. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. When my men called saying they'd found you in that alley, I've never driven so fast in my life. He pulled something from his jacket, Mom's journal, the one from my backpack. I had it translated. He handed it to me, now filled with English notes in the margins. She loved you more than anything. And she loved your father. Everything she did, every choice she made, was to keep you safe from the life that eventually killed him. I opened it with shaking hands, reading her words in a new language. The story unfolded, Daesung's rise in the criminal underworld, their passionate affair, his enemies circling. Her decision to flee when she discovered she was pregnant, choosing poverty in America over riches and danger in Seoul. She tried to protect me, I whispered. And now I'm trying to do the same. Jae-hyun's hand covered mine on the journal. I know this is a cage, Min-jun. I know I'm selfish for keeping you here. But out there, you're a target. In here, you're safe. You're mine. The possessiveness should have terrified me. Instead, it kindled something warm and dangerous in my chest. What if I want more than safety? I looked up at him. What if I want freedom too? Then we'll figure it out. Together. He leaned his forehead against mine. But not today. Today, you stay where I can keep you breathing. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't even a good compromise. But as his arms wrapped around me and Seoul glittered below us like scattered diamonds, I stopped thinking about running. At least for tonight. The first time Jae-hyun put me on my back, I panicked. We were in his private gym, sleek equipment and mirrors that reflected my scrawny frame next to his predator's build. He'd suggested self-defense training over breakfast, casual as discussing the weather. If you're going to survive in my world, he'd said, you need to know how to fight. Now his weight pinned me to the mat, one hand controlling my wrists above my head. Every instinct screamed Harlan. The helplessness, the trapped feeling, the body above mine meaning only pain. Breathe. Jae-hyun's voice cut through the spiral. Look at me, Min-jun. Not him. Me. I focused on his face. Not cruel. Concerned. When someone pins you like this, you have options. He shifted, showing me the mechanics. Hip escape. Or if they're distracted. He demonstrated a strike that would have disabled him if I'd actually followed through. Never let anyone make you helpless again. Understood. We trained every morning after that. He taught me how to fall without breaking, how to turn vulnerability into leverage. His hands on my body became familiar, adjusting my stance, correcting my form. Professional. Mostly. Except when our eyes met in the mirror and the air turned electric. Or when a takedown attempt left us tangled on the mat, breathing hard, his hips between my thighs. Again, he'd growl, pulling back before the tension snapped. But his eyes promised things that had nothing to do with self-defense. The Korean lessons were worse. We sat close on the couch, his finger tracing characters in my workbook, while his scent wrapped around me like silk. Say it again. Sarangi. Sarung, hey. I stumbled over the pronunciation. Better. His breath ghosted against my ear. Do you know what it means? No. Good. A dark smile played at his lips. You're not ready to say it yet. But I looked it up later on the computer. I love you. My heart did something complicated and unwelcome in my chest. 2 weeks in, he brought me to a business meeting at one of his clubs. I'd begged for fresh air, for anything beyond the penthouse walls. His eyes had darkened with something unreadable before he'd agreed. The club was all velvet and danger, beautiful people dancing to bass that vibrated in my bones. Jae-hyun led me to a private room where 2 men waited, expensive suits, dead eyes. Mr. Kang. The older one stood, forcing a smile. We weren't expecting company. This is Min-jun. Jae-hyun's hand settled possessively on my lower back. He's under my protection, which means he sees what I see, hears what I hear. Understood. They understood. The conversation started civil, percentages, territories, shipments I didn't fully comprehend. Then the younger man made a mistake. The Hwang family is offering better terms. Perhaps we should consider. Jae-hyun moved so fast I barely tracked it. One moment he was seated. The next, the man was slammed against the wall, Jae-hyun's hand crushing his throat. The Hwang family murdered my bonded mate. His voice was arctic, empty of everything human. If you think I'd ever do business with them, you're stupider than you look. And if you bring their name into my presence again, he squeezed harder. The man's face purpled. I'll feed you to the Han River piece by piece. He released him. The man crumpled, gasping. Get out, both of you, and tell everyone you know, Kang Jae-hyun doesn't negotiate with traitors. They fled. Jae-hyun straightened his cuffs, breathing controlled, before turning to me. The monster slid away, replaced by careful concern. I'm sorry you had to see that. Are you? I couldn't keep the tremor from my voice. Or is this another lesson? Showing me what you're capable of? Both. He crossed to me, stopping just out of reach. I need you to understand who I am, Min-jun. What I do. The violence isn't for show, it's survival. In this world, weakness gets you killed. Like Min-ho. Pain cracked through his mask. Yes, like Min-ho. We drove back in silence. But later, after midnight, I found him on the penthouse balcony. Shirtless despite the autumn chill, staring at Seoul's lights. I should have stayed inside. Should have maintained the distance that kept me safe from feelings I couldn't afford. Instead, I stepped out beside him. Can't sleep? His voice was rough, exhausted. You neither, apparently. He huffed something like a laugh. Then, without looking at me, I was 25 when I met Min-ho. He was a hostess at one of the clubs, beautiful, sharp-tongued, completely unimpressed by my reputation. His fingers traced the balcony railing. He saw through all my armor to the scared kid underneath playing dress-up in his dead father's empire. Your father built this kingdom, then drank himself to death when I was 19. Left me everything and no instruction manual. He finally looked at me, moonlight turning his eyes silver. Minho taught me it was okay to be afraid, to be gentle sometimes, to want something beyond power and revenge. And then they took him. And then I became exactly what my father was. Maybe worse. He turned fully toward me. I thought I'd buried that gentle part forever. Then you showed up bleeding in my alley, terrified but still fighting, and he stopped, jaw working. And what? And I wanted to be gentle again. His hand lifted, cupping my face with devastating tenderness. You make me want impossible things, Min-jun. I leaned into his touch, this dangerous man who'd given me safety and captivity in equal measure. Like what? Like keeping you. Not as property or protection, but as, he swallowed hard, as someone I could love without it destroying us both. The confession hung between us, raw and terrifying. I should have pulled away. Should have reminded him I wasn't a replacement for his dead Omega, that Stockholm Syndrome wasn't romance, that I'd known him barely 3 weeks. Instead, I kissed him. Not heat-driven this time. Not desperation or biology. Just me, choosing him, even knowing it was probably the worst decision I'd ever make. He groaned against my mouth, pulling me close. This is a mistake. I know. You should run from me. I know that too. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. But I'm tired of running. And you're the first person who's ever made me feel. What? Like I'm worth keeping. Something broke in his expression. He kissed me again, harder, walking me backward into the penthouse. We fell into bed tangled together. And this time when he touched me it felt less like claiming and more like cherishing. Afterward, wrapped in his arms while Seoul slept below us, I admitted the truth to myself. I was falling in love with my captor. And I hated myself for it almost as much as I wanted it to be real. I was learning Korean irregular verbs when my old phone buzzed. The cheap flip phone I'd brought from America, dead for weeks until I'd found a charger in one of Jae-hyun's drawers. I'd kept it off, knowing Harlan might track it. But homesickness had made me stupid. I wanted to see Mom's last texts, her contact photo, proof she'd existed beyond the journal. The screen lit up with a new message. Unknown number. Video attachment. My hands shook as I pressed play. Harlan's face filled the screen, whiskey-flushed and mean. Behind him, I recognized our farmhouse kitchen, the same one where he'd beaten me senseless a month ago. Hey there, boy. His Missouri drawl oozed through the speaker. Thought you could run? Thought you could hide halfway across the world. He leaned closer, eyes glittering with malice. I know where you are. Seoul. Gangnam District. Shacked up with some Korean gangster playing house. Ice flooded my veins. You're my property, Min-jun. Your mama knew it. That's why she never left, even when she wanted to. His smile was razors. And I'm coming to collect what's mine. Tell your new alpha friend he can't protect you. Nobody can. The video ended. I dropped the phone like it burned. My breath came in short gasps, the walls closing in. He knew. He'd found me. All of Jae-hyun's security, all the locked doors and bodyguards, and Harlan had still. Min-jun. Jae-hyun's voice cut through the panic. He'd come home early, was already crossing the room. What happened? I couldn't speak, just handed him the phone with trembling fingers. His expression went arctic as he watched. Then he made a call, rapid Korean I couldn't follow. Within minutes, Taemin and Yuna arrived, along with 2 men I didn't recognize, tech specialists, judging by their equipment. Trace it, Jae-hyun ordered. I want to know every person he's contacted, every flight he's booked, every connection he has in this city. Boss. Taemin's face was grim. If he knows about Min-jun's location, he's got serious intel. That's not amateur hour. American Syndicate? Yuna suggested, already on her laptop. The Volkov Bratva has Seoul operations. They work with ex-military types. Jae-hyun's jaw clenched. Find the connection. Shut it down. They worked through the night while I sat frozen on the couch, Jae-hyun's jacket around my shoulders. He refused to leave my side, one hand always touching me, my shoulder, my knee, anchoring me to reality. He can't get to you, he murmured. I won't let him. You don't know Harlan. My voice cracked. He's persistent. And mean. He doesn't forget. Neither do I. Jae-hyun tilted my chin up, forcing eye contact. And I have resources he can't imagine. Money. Soldiers. An entire city that answers to me. He's one man. One very angry man who thinks he owns me. He's wrong. The possessiveness in Jae-hyun's eyes should have scared me. Instead, it felt like armor. You're mine, and I protect what's mine. The first attack came 3 days later. Club Azure, the same one where Jae-hyun's men had found me, erupted in flames at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. The explosion tore through the main floor, killing 17 people instantly. Dozens more injured, trapped in the inferno. I watched the news coverage in horror, Korean anchors speaking too fast for my limited vocabulary. But the images needed no translation. Body bags, weeping families, Seoul's skyline stained with smoke. Jae-hyun arrived home at dawn, suit streaked with ash and blood. Not his own, he'd been pulling survivors from the rubble. This is my fault. I met him at the door, tears streaming. Harlan did this because of me. No. His voice was steel wrapped in exhaustion. Harlan did this because he's a coward who attacks innocents instead of facing me directly. He pulled me close, heedless of the ash transferring to my clothes. But he just made a fatal mistake. What mistake? He declared war on the Kang family. Jae-hyun's eyes were black fire. And we always win our wars. The next week was a blur of activity. The penthouse became a war room, men in suits arriving at all hours, speaking in coded language about shipments, territories, alliances. Una traced Harlan's connections to the Volkov Bratva, a Russian-American syndicate with fingers in Seoul's dirtier enterprises. They're providing him with intel and access, she reported, spreading photos across the dining table. In exchange for a cut of Kang territory once you're removed from the equation. Jae-hyun studied the faces with cold calculation. Who's their sole operation head? Viktor Kozlov. Runs protection rackets in Itaewon, some smuggling through Incheon port. Not anymore, he doesn't. Jae-hyun pulled out his phone, started making calls. I watched from the sidelines as he dismantled Kozlov's operation piece by piece. Frozen assets, arrested lieutenants, shipments mysteriously seized by customs. It was surgical, ruthless, terrifying. And it was all for me. You're starting a war, I said quietly that night, finding him on the balcony again. Our spot now, where confessions happened. I'm finishing one. He didn't turn around. The Bratva has been pushing into our territory for months. They were waiting for an excuse to move against us. Harlan just gave them one. And how many more people die before it's finished? That made him turn. You think I want this? That I enjoy watching my clubs burn, my people bleed? I think you won't stop until Harlan's dead. You're right. I won't. He crossed to me, each step deliberate. Because the alternative is letting him take you. And I'll burn this entire city to ash before I let that happen. The declaration should have horrified me. Maybe it did, somewhere under the fear and guilt. But another part, the part that had survived 19 years of Harlan's brutality, felt something darker. Satisfaction. I want to help, I said. No. He's my monster, Jae-hyun. Let me fight him. Absolutely not. You're staying here where it's safe while you what? Treat me like property that needs protecting. I stepped closer, anger burning away the fear. I'm not Min-ho. I'm not some delicate thing that breaks under pressure. Harlan made sure of that. Pain flickered across his face. I know you're not Min-ho. But I can't, his voice broke. I can't watch another person I care about die because of this life. Then teach me to survive it. I grabbed his shirt, forcing him to look at me. You said you'd teach me to never be helpless again. So do it. Make me strong enough to stand beside you, not hide behind you. He stared at me for a long moment, war playing out behind his eyes. Then slowly he nodded. Tomorrow we start real training. Not self-defense. Combat. His hand covered mine on his shirt. But Min-jun, if Harlan gets anywhere near you, you run. Promise me. I promise. It was a lie and we both knew it. Because when Harlan finally came, I wouldn't run. I'd end this, one way or another. Even if it killed me. The war room had taken over the penthouse completely. Maps of Seoul covered every surface, red pins marking Bratva operations, blue for Kang territory. Jae-hyun barely slept, surviving on coffee and cigarettes he smoked on the balcony when he thought I wasn't watching. I'd become invisible in my own prison. We need the Choi family's support in Busan, Taemin was saying, pointing at the southern port city. They've been neutral so far, but if the Bratva pushes into their shipping lanes, offer them 20% of Incheon, Jae-hyun decided. Better to share than lose it all. I set down my Korean textbook with more force than necessary. 6 heads turned toward me. Can I talk to you? I asked Jae-hyun in English. Alone, his eyes narrowed, reading the tension in my voice. Give us the room. They filed out, Yuna throwing me a knowing look, Taemin concerned. The door closed with a decisive click. What's wrong? Jae-hyun loosened his tie, exhaustion written in every line of his body. What's wrong? I laughed, sharp and brittle. I've been sitting here for 2 weeks watching you plan a war that's happening because of me, and you won't let me do anything but study vocabulary words and practice kicks on a bag. You're learning. Getting stronger. I'm going insane. I stood, pacing. You bring your advisors here, have meetings 3 feet from where I sleep, but the second actual planning starts, I'm shuffled away like a child. Go study, Min-jun. Practice your Korean, Min-jun. Let the adults handle this. That's not. It is exactly that. My voice rose. I didn't survive one cage to live in another. At least with Harlan, I knew where I stood. But you, I gestured at him, at the room, at everything. You say I'm yours, that you're protecting me, but you won't let me protect myself. Won't let me have a voice in decisions about my own life. He stood slowly, jaw tight. Everything I'm doing is to keep you alive. No, everything you're doing is to keep me controlled. The truth burned coming out, but I couldn't stop. You're so terrified of losing another Omega that you've locked me up tighter than Harlan ever did. At least he was honest about owning me. Jae-hyun flinched like I'd struck him. That's not fair. Isn't it? I moved closer, anger overriding caution. You say I'm not property, but you won't let me leave. You say I'm not Minho, but you treat me like glass about to shatter. You say you want me as a partner, but partners have equal say. Partners trust each other. I do trust you. Then prove it. I shoved his chest, useless against his bulk, but the gesture mattered. Let me in. Let me help. Stop trying to be my savior and be my. I stopped, the word catching in my throat. You're what? His voice was dangerously quiet. My equal. It wasn't the word I'd almost said, but it was safer. Your partner. Someone who stands beside you, not behind you. He was silent for a long moment, emotions warring across his face. Then, quietly, I don't know how to do that. The admission punctured my anger. What? Be equal with someone he stopped, running a hand through his hair. Everyone in my life either serves me or uses me. My father taught me that power is control, that showing weakness gets you killed. Then Minho came along and I thought I'd learn differently, but his voice cracked. They killed him because I let myself be vulnerable, because I let him be seen as my weakness. So you'd rather lock me away than risk it? Yes. Raw honesty. Because the thought of losing you the way I lost him, he turned away, shoulders rigid. I can't do it again, Min-jun. I can't bury another person I love. The word hung between us, naked and terrifying. You love me? My voice was barely a whisper. I'm falling. He faced me again, and the vulnerability in his eyes shattered something in my chest. Every day a little more. The way you fight even when you're scared. The way you're learning Korean just to understand my world better. How you look at me like I'm not a monster, even after seeing what I'm capable of. He stepped closer. But I don't know how to love without possessing, without controlling. It's all I know. I reached for his hand, lacing our fingers together. Then we learned together. What if I fail? What if my need to protect you ends up suffocating you? Then I'll tell you. I squeezed his hand. Like I'm telling you now. But Jae-hyun, you have to let me in. All the way in. Not just your bed or your penthouse, but your plans, your fears, your decisions. It could get you killed. Hiding me away could kill me too. Just slower. I pulled him closer. I'm stronger than you think. Harlan made sure of that, even if he didn't mean to. Every beating, every threat, I survived. I'm still here. Still fighting. He cupped my face with his free hand, thumb tracing my cheekbone. You terrify me. Good. You terrify me too. I managed a shaky smile. Maybe that means we're even. What do you want from me? The question was genuine, almost pleading. Tell me what equals looks like, and I'll try. I'll fail sometimes, but I'll try. I thought about it, really thought. I want to know the plans. Be in the meetings. Learn how your world works instead of being sheltered from it. I want combat training, not just self-defense. And I swallowed hard. I want the door code. The ability to leave if I choose to. His hand tightened on my face. Min-jun. I won't run. That's not what this is about. I held his gaze. But I need to know I'm staying because I choose to, not because you won't let me go. Can you give me that? The war on his face was painful to watch. Every instinct screaming against it, love and fear tangled too tight to separate. Finally, he pulled out his phone, tapped a few buttons, and showed me the screen. A 6-digit code. The key to my cage. The fingerprint lock is disabled, he said roughly. You can leave whenever you want. But Min-jun, his voice broke. Please don't. I kissed him, pouring everything I couldn't say into it. When I pulled back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. I'm staying, I promised. Not because I'm trapped, but because I want to be here. With you. Building something neither of us knows how to build yet. Partners. He tested the word like it was foreign. Partners. I nodded. Which means tomorrow, I sit in on the strategy meeting. No more being sent away. You'll be bored. It's mostly arguing about territory percentages and supply routes. Then I'll learn about territory percentages and supply routes. I smiled. That's what partners do. He pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. I'm going to fuck this up sometimes. I know. I'll fuck it up too. I wrapped my arms around him. But we'll figure it out. We stood like that for a long time, two broken people trying to make something whole. The maps and pins could wait. The war would still be there tomorrow. Tonight, we were learning a different kind of battle. The one where you let someone past your armor and prayed they didn't destroy you from the inside. It was terrifying. It was worth it. And when Jae-hyun kissed me again, gentle and devastating, I knew I'd made the right choice. Not escape. Not safety. But this messy, complicated, dangerous love with a man who was learning to let me stand beside him instead of behind him. Equal footing in an unequal world. It was a start. The call came at 3 a.m., Yuna's phone, but not her voice. Hello, boy. Harlan's drawl oozed through the speaker. Miss me? Jae-hyun was already moving, pulling on clothes, gesturing for Taemin to trace the call. I grabbed the phone before he could stop me. Where is she? My voice was ice despite the fear clawing my throat. Your boyfriend's pretty little advisor? She's right here. A scuffle, then Yuna's voice sharp with pain. Don't you dare come, Min-jun. It's a trap. A slap cut her off. Warehouse in Yongdongpo. Harlan continued like nothing had happened. You know the one, your father's old territory before he got himself killed. Be here in an hour. Alone. Or I start mailing her back in pieces. The line went dead. No. Jae-hyun's voice was absolute. You're not going. He'll kill her. He'll kill you. Jae-hyun grabbed my shoulders. That's the whole point. He takes you, uses you against me, destroys everything. I won't. She's there because of me. I shoved him back. Because I exist, because Harlan wants me, because I'm the weak point in your armor. Well, I'm done being weak. I moved toward the bedroom, pulling out the handgun Taemin had taught me to shoot. Checked the magazine with practiced efficiency, 15 rounds, one in the chamber. Jae-hyun had wanted me armed after the club bombing. Now I'd use it. Min-jun. He followed me, dangerous and desperate. Please, let me handle this. How? Storm in with your army and get Yuna killed in the crossfire. I faced him, gun steady in my hand. He wants me. So he gets me. But on my terms. What terms? You walk in there and he. Jae-hyun's voice broke. I can't watch you die. Then don't watch. I moved past him. Come in 5 minutes after I do. Give me time to get her clear. Then burn that warehouse to the ground with every Bratva bastard inside. This is insane. This is war. I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. You said I was your partner. So trust me. Please. The war in his eyes was agony. Then slowly he nodded. 5 minutes. And you wear a vest. He was already pulling Kevlar from the closet. Taemin goes in first, sniper position. The second you're in danger. I know. I let him strap the vest on, his hands shaking. I love you. He froze. I'd never said it before. Neither had he, not directly. Don't. His voice was wrecked. Don't say it like goodbye. I'm not planning on dying tonight. I kissed him, hard and desperate. But just in case, I love you. The possessive, controlling, beautiful disaster of you. I love you too. He pulled me close, Kevlar and all. Which is why I'm bringing an army. The warehouse was exactly where Harlan said, abandoned, windows broken, the perfect place for an ambush. I walked through the door alone, gun tucked at the small of my back under Jae-hyun's jacket. Yuna was tied to a chair in the center, blood trickling from her split lip. Around her, 6 men with rifles, Americans, judging by their bulk. And there, leaning against a support beam like he owned the world, was Harlan. He looked older than I remembered. Meaner. The Missouri farmhouse had hidden some of his cruelty, but here in harsh fluorescent light, he was pure predator. There's my boy. He smiled, and my skin crawled. You grew up nice. Soul's been good to you. Let her go. I kept my voice steady. You wanted me. I'm here. See, that's where you're wrong. He pushed off the beam, circling like a shark. I don't just want you. I want to break you. And the best way to break someone, he grabbed Yuna's hair, yanking her head back, is to make them watch their people suffer first. Touch her again and you die screaming. He laughed. Big words for an Omega who used to whimper every time I raised my hand. You think your gangster boyfriend taught you to be tough? Boy, I made you. Every scar, every fear, that's my work. You're right. I stepped closer. You did make me. Just not the way you think. His eyes narrowed. What? You taught me that monsters are real. That sometimes you have to become something dark to survive them. I pulled the gun, aiming center mass. So thank you, Harlan. For every beating. Every threat. Every night I spent terrified. You taught me exactly what I needed to know. You won't shoot. But uncertainty flickered in his eyes. You're too weak. The first gunshot took out the merc on my left, Taemin's sniper rifle, right on schedule. Chaos erupted. Harlan's men scattered, returning fire toward the windows. And through the back entrance, Jae-hyun and his crew poured in like a flood. Harlan grabbed Yuna, using her as a shield. Stand down or she dies. Min-jun. Jae-hyun's voice cut through the gunfire. Get clear. But I was already moving, the training taking over. Drew Harlan's attention with movement to the right while Yuna, savage, brilliant Yuna, drove her head backward into his nose. He stumbled, grip loosening. She dropped, rolling away. Harlan reached for his gun. I fired first. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him. He fell, cursing, blood spreading across his shirt. I walked forward, gun steady, and kicked his weapon away. You were right about one thing, I said, standing over the man who'd haunted my nightmares for 19 years. You did make me. But I'm not yours anymore. Min-jun, don't. Jae-hyun was beside me suddenly, gun trained on Harlan. Let me. No. I didn't lower my weapon. This is mine. He's mine. Harlan laughed, wet and pained. Go ahead, boy. Pull the trigger. Become just like me. I'm nothing like you. My hand didn't shake. You took pleasure in hurting people weaker than you. This. I gestured with the gun. This is justice. Min-jun. Jae-hyun's voice was gentle. You don't have to do this. We can make him disappear, make him suffer. I know. I glanced at him. But I need to. For Mom. For every kid he ever hurt. For me. Understanding flickered in Jae-hyun's eyes. He stepped back, giving me space. Harlan's laugh turned desperate. You ain't got the guts. I shot him twice more. Center mass, just like Taemin taught me. The warehouse went silent except for the ringing in my ears. Harlan's eyes went glassy, fixed on nothing. The monster of my childhood, reduced to meat and memory. The gun slipped from my fingers. I stood there, shaking, as the reality crashed over me. I'd killed him. Ended a life. Became. Arms wrapped around me from behind. Jae-hyun's scent grounding me. You're okay, he murmured. You're safe. It's over. I killed him. My voice sounded distant. You survived him. Jae-hyun turned me to face him. That's what matters. He came to destroy you, and you refused to break. Yuna appeared, limping but alive. That was the most badass thing I've ever seen. Remind me never to piss you off. I laughed, sharp and bordering on hysterical. Taemin was handling the cleanup, efficient and grim. The Bratva mercenaries were dead or detained. It was over. It was really over. Take me home, I whispered to Jae-hyun. He lifted me like I weighed nothing, carrying me past the bodies and blood, into the Seoul night where sirens wailed in the distance. His people would handle the rest, the cover story, the evidence, the war that would continue without Harlan. But for now, I let myself break in the arms of the man I loved. I'd been strong enough. Finally, I could rest. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Harlan's face, the shock, the blood, the moment life left his body. Jae-hyun stayed with me through all of it, holding me when the shakes got bad, never once saying I'd done the wrong thing. But on the 4th morning, I found him on the balcony at dawn, staring at something in his hands. Mom's journal. There's something I need to tell you. His voice was heavy with a secret he'd carried too long. About your father. About why Harlan really came to Seoul. I joined him, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders against the autumn chill. I'm listening. Kang Dae-sung wasn't just my mentor. Jae-hyun's fingers traced the journal's worn cover. He saved my life when I was 17, pulled me out of a rival gang's ambush, took a bullet meant for me. Spent 2 years teaching me everything about this world, how to survive it, how to lead. His voice roughened. He was more than a mentor. He was the father mine never was. What happened to him? 8 years ago, we were expanding into international shipping. Made enemies with an American operation running guns through Incheon. He finally looked at me, and the pain in his eyes was ancient. They sent someone to negotiate. Ex-military, mean as a snake. Name was Harlan Briggs. My blood went cold. No. The deal went bad. Harlan's people tried to kill us both. Daesung got me out, but he was shot in the process. Jae-hyun's hands shook on the journal. He survived barely. But he knew they'd come back, knew his family would be targets. So he sent your mother away, told her to disappear, to keep you safe from the war he couldn't win. Mom's journal said he was involved with dangerous people. The pieces were clicking into place, horrible and inevitable. But she never said. Because he protected her from it. Made her think it was just business rivals, not a specific vendetta. Jae-hyun opened the journal to a page marked with a photograph. My father and young Jae-hyun, both smiling. 6 months after she left, Harlan's people found Daesung. Tortured him for information about our operations, then dumped his body in the Han River. Tears burned my eyes. Just like Minho. I think that's why I couldn't let you go. His voice broke. You have his eyes. His stubborn chin. The way you tilt your head when you're thinking. Every time I look at you, I see the man who saved my life, and he stopped, composing himself. I failed him. Let him die without backup, without protection. I was young, stupid, thought I could handle the Harlan situation myself. By the time I realized how dangerous he was, it was too late. That's not your fault. Isn't it? He laughed bitterly. And then, years later, I discover Harlan married Daesung's widow. Not coincidence, revenge. He wanted to destroy everything Daesung loved, piece by piece. Your mother. You. His hands cupped my face. When I found out you existed, that you'd been living with that monster, I nearly lost my mind. All those years, you were right there suffering, and I had no idea. You couldn't have known. I should have looked harder. Should have protected Daesung's family the way he protected me. He pressed his forehead to mine. I'm so sorry, Min-jun, for everything you endured because I failed him. I kissed him, tasting salt from both our tears. You didn't fail. You found me, kept me safe, gave me the strength to end it myself. You did that on your own. Pride flickered through his grief. Daesung would be so proud of who you've become. Stronger than any of us. We stood like that as Seoul woke around us. Two people bound by love and loss and the ghost of a man who'd tried to save us both. I want your mark, I said finally. The real one. Permanent. He pulled back, searching my face. Min-jun, you don't have to. I know. That's why I want it. I bared my throat, where his claiming bite had faded to a scar. Not because I'm property or because I'm afraid, but because I choose you. Choose us. Choose this life we're building. It's forever. His voice was reverent, desperate. Once I mark you, we're bonded until death. You'll feel what I feel, be tied to me in ways you can't imagine. Good. I pulled him closer. Mark me. Make me yours the way I've already made you mine. His alpha nature surged at the permission, eyes flashing gold. He carried me inside, laid me on the bed with devastating gentleness. When his teeth sank into the junction of my neck and shoulder, the pain was blinding, exquisite, perfect. The bond snapped into place like a lock finding its key. Suddenly I could feel him, not just physically, but emotionally. His love, fierce and protective. His fear of losing me. His determination to be worthy of this gift I'd given. And underneath it all, a bone-deep sense of home I'd never experienced before. I feel you, I gasped as he licked the wound, sealing it. Oh God, Jae-hyun, I can feel. I know, baby. I know. He kissed me, and the bond sang between us. You're mine now. Truly mine. And you're mine. I bit his shoulder in return. Not deep enough for a permanent mark, but a promise nonetheless. Equal partners. In everything. In everything, he agreed. 6 months later, I stood in front of a building in Gangnam, keys in hand. The sign above the door read Kang Foundation, in both Korean and English. My project, my vision. A non-profit helping Omegas escape abusive situations, offering shelter, legal aid, and job training. Funded by Jae-hyun's money, but run by me. Nervous? Yuna appeared beside me, healed and sharp as ever. She'd agreed to be the foundation's legal director. Terrified, I admitted. What if I screw this up? Then you'll fix it. She bumped my shoulder. That's what you do. You survive, adapt, fix things. Inside, the space was clean and welcoming. Soft colors, comfortable furniture, resources in a dozen languages. Everything I'd wished existed when I was trapped with Harlan. Jae-hyun arrived at noon, legitimate businessman in a gray suit. He was slowly transitioning the family operations, selling the clubs, investing in legal enterprises, keeping only the most defensible territory. It would take years, maybe decades, to fully leave the underworld behind. But we were trying. Proud of you, he murmured, kissing my bonding mark. The gesture was automatic now, grounding. Proud of us, I corrected. Through the bond, I felt his agreement, warm and certain. We'd never be normal. Too much blood, too many scars. But we were healing, together, imperfectly real. I was Kang Min-jun now, legally adopted into Jae-hyun's family. Daesung's son and Jae-hyun's bonded mate. Running a foundation by day, coming home to a penthouse that felt less like a cage and more like a choice. Some nights, I still dreamed of Harlan, of Missouri rain and bruises that wouldn't fade. But I'd wake to Jae-hyun's arms, to Seoul's lights, to a life I'd built from ashes and determination. I'd escaped one monster's cage, and found a king who learned to kneel. Not perfect, not easy, but ours. And that was enough.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell us your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell for more stories.